On a meticulous millionaire's penthouse, every sip of coffee is part of an untouchable ritual. But when the cleaner's daughter sees his wife adulterating the honey with a suspicious liquid, something changes. One morning, she approaches silently and whispers in French, "Don't drink that coffee. She put poison in it." From that instant, a simple phrase spoken in another language triggers the fall of a perfect mask. The morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Ocean View penthouse in Newport Beach, California. Robert Anderson stood at the edge of his balcony, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the Pacific Ocean met the sky. At 55, Robert had achieved everything society deemed worthy of achievement. A real estate empire valued at billions, properties scattered across 3 continents, and a reputation as one of the shrewdest businessmen on the West Coast. The penthouse itself was a testament to his success. 12,000 square feet of minimalist luxury, decorated in whites and neutral tones that made it resemble a contemporary art museum more than a home. The silence that permeated the space was almost sacred, broken only by the occasional sound of his Italian leather shoes against the marble floors. "Your coffee, Mr. Anderson," Martha Johnson said, her voice barely above a whisper as she placed the cup on the glass table beside him. Martha had been working for the Andersons for nearly 20 years now. Her weathered hands and quiet demeanor had become as much a part of the penthouse as the expensive artwork adorning its walls. At 52, she moved through the spacious rooms with practiced efficiency, invisible yet indispensable. "Thank you, Martha," Robert replied, offering her a genuine smile that rarely made appearances in his business meetings. "Is Emma with you today?" "Yes, sir. She's in the kitchen preparing for her French exam. I hope you don't mind." "Not at all." That girl's dedication to her studies is admirable. Robert reached for the honey jar beside his coffee cup. His doctor had recommended pure honey instead of sugar after his recent digestive issues. He carefully added a spoonful to his coffee, stirring it methodically. 7 clockwise rotations, never more, never less. His life was built on such precise rituals. In the kitchen, 17-year-old Emma Johnson sat at the marble island, French textbooks spread before her. Unlike her peers at the public high school she attended, Emma found solace in learning. Her grandfather, a retired French professor, had instilled in her a love for the language since she was old enough to speak. It was their special connection, a bridge to a world beyond the constraints of their modest circumstances. The sound of heels clicking against marble announced the arrival of Sophia Anderson. At 42, the former model still commanded attention when she entered a room. Her blonde hair was pulled back in an immaculate bun, her designer loungewear suggesting casual elegance that only the truly wealthy could achieve. "Good morning, Emma," Sophia said, her practiced smile never quite reaching her eyes. "Studying French again. Such dedication." "Good morning, Mrs. Anderson. Yes, I have an important exam tomorrow." Sophia nodded absently, her attention already elsewhere as she opened a cabinet that Martha had been instructed never to touch. Emma watched from the corner of her eye as Sophia glanced around furtively before retrieving a small bottle with a dropper. There was something in the woman's expression, a cold calculation that made Emma's stomach tighten with unease. When Sophia stepped toward the honey jar on the counter, Emma pretended to be absorbed in her textbook. Through lowered lashes, she observed, as Sophia carefully added several drops from the bottle into the honey, stirring it thoroughly before returning the bottle to its hiding place. "Emma, would you mind taking this to my husband?" Sophia asked, her voice honey-sweet as she gestured to the freshly tampered jar. "He'll need it for his second cup of coffee." "Of course, Mrs. Anderson," Emma replied, keeping her voice steady despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. Sophia's smile widened. "Such a good girl. Tell your mother I said she's raised you well." As Sophia glided out of the kitchen toward her private yoga studio, Emma stood frozen, the honey jar in her hands feeling suddenly heavy with implication. What had she just witnessed? The calculated look in Sophia's eyes, the secretive way she'd added the unknown substance to Robert's honey. None of it felt innocent. Emma had always been observant. It was a skill developed from years of moving quietly through the homes of the wealthy, learning to be present yet invisible. Over the past few weeks, she had noticed troubling changes in Robert Anderson, the occasional tremor in his hands, the pallor of his skin, the headaches he tried to hide, and a persistent fatigue that seemed to weigh on his shoulders. She placed the honey jar on the counter, her mind racing. If she was right about what she'd just witnessed, saying nothing would make her complicit. But if she was wrong, speaking up could cost her mother the job that had sustained them since her father walked out 14 years ago. Emma carried Robert's second cup of coffee to the balcony, deliberately forgetting the honey jar. When she reached him, he was engrossed in a business call, his voice authoritative as he negotiated some deal worth millions. She placed the coffee on the table and turned to leave. "Emma," Robert called after ending his call, "you forgot the honey." "I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson, I'll get it right away." In the kitchen, Emma made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. She grabbed a new jar of honey from the pantry, one that Sophia hadn't touched, and brought it to Robert instead. Across town, in a sleek architectural office overlooking the harbor, Ethan Collins reviewed the plans for his latest project. At 45, the architect had built a reputation for innovative designs that blended functionality with artistic vision. His phone buzzed with a text message, "Missing you, can't wait to see you tonight. S." A smile played at the corners of his mouth as he typed his response. "The waiting is the hardest part. 8 o'clock?" The reply came almost instantly. "Perfect. Everything's going according to plan." Back at the penthouse, Emma watched as Robert stirred the fresh honey into his coffee, unaware of what had nearly happened. As he sipped his drink, Emma made another decision. She would watch more carefully now. She would pay attention to every detail, every interaction between Robert and Sophia. And she would protect this man who had always treated her and her mother with kindness and respect. What Emma couldn't know was that her small act of substituting the honey would set in motion a series of events that would unravel the carefully constructed facade of the Anderson marriage, exposing secrets that had been buried beneath layers of wealth and privilege for years. That evening, as Martha and Emma prepared to leave the penthouse, Robert approached them by the service elevator. "Emma," he said, his voice kind but serious, "I understand your grandfather was a French professor." Emma nodded, surprised by the question. "Yes, sir, he taught at the university for 30 years. I've been meaning to practice my French. My business is expanding to Paris, and I could use a conversation partner. Would you be interested in helping me? I'd compensate you for your time, of course." Before Emma could respond, Martha intervened. "That's very generous, Mr. Anderson, but Emma's schedule is quite full with school and—" "It's okay, Mom," Emma said, meeting Robert's gaze. "I'd be happy to help Mr. Anderson." Something passed between them in that moment, an unspoken understanding that transcended their respective positions in life. Neither could have anticipated how this simple agreement would become their lifeline in the tumultuous weeks ahead. As the elevator doors closed, separating them from the rarefied air of the penthouse, Martha turned to her daughter with concern etched on her face. "Emma, what are you doing? Getting involved with the Andersons beyond our work." "Trust me, Mom," Emma said, her expression resolute. "I have a feeling, Mr. Anderson needs our help more than he knows." 3 days later, Emma sat across from Robert in his home office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a panoramic view of the Pacific. The morning sun cast long rectangles of light across the polished oak desk between them, illuminating the French vocabulary lists Emma had prepared. "Your pronunciation is excellent, Mr. Anderson," Emma said after listening to him recite a series of business terms. "You barely have an accent." Robert smiled, the expression softening his otherwise stern features. "Credit goes to my college professor. She was merciless about proper inflection." He leaned back in his leather chair, a slight tremor visible in his right hand as he reached for his water glass. "But please call me Robert when we're having these sessions. Mr. Anderson makes me feel like I'm in a board meeting." Emma nodded, though the familiarity made her uncomfortable. In the world she inhabited, boundaries between employer and employee were sacrosanct. "Robert," she tested the name cautiously. "D'accord. Continuons avec les expressions idiomatiques." They continued in French, discussing common phrases that might be useful in business settings. Emma couldn't help but notice how Robert occasionally lost his train of thought or paused to massage his temples. The symptoms she'd observed over the past week seemed to be intensifying. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked during one such pause, switching back to English. Robert waved away her concern. "Just a persistent headache. Nothing serious." "You've been having them often, haven't you?" Emma ventured, careful to keep her tone casual. His eyes narrowed slightly. You're observant. Yes, they've become more frequent lately. My doctor thinks it's stress-related. Emma hesitated, weighing her next words carefully. Have you considered it might be something else? Like what? The question hung in the air between them. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by the office door swinging open. Sophia glided in, elegant in a cream designer dress, a honey jar in her hand. I thought you might need this for your coffee, darling, she said, placing the jar on Robert's desk. Her smile was radiant, but Emma noticed it didn't reach her eyes. You left it in the kitchen. Thank you, Sophia, Robert replied, his expression carefully neutral. Sophia turned her attention to Emma. How are the French lessons going? Robert speaks so highly of your teaching abilities. We're making good progress, Emma said, maintaining a professional tone despite the unease crawling up her spine. Wonderful. Sophia's gaze lingered on Emma for a moment too long. I've always found languages fascinating. The way certain words can mean one thing on the surface, but conceal deeper intentions. Emma felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Was that a veiled message? Your mother is looking for you, Sophia continued. Something about needing help with the upstairs bathrooms. The dismissal was clear. Emma gathered her notes and stood. We'll continue tomorrow, Mr. Anderson. Robert. Same time? He nodded, his expression inscrutable. I look forward to it. As Emma left the office, she glanced back to see Sophia pouring coffee for her husband, adding a generous spoonful of honey from the jar she'd brought. The sight made Emma's stomach clench with worry. In the upstairs hallway, Emma found her mother organizing the linen closet. Mom, Mrs. Anderson said you needed me. Martha looked confused. No, I'm almost finished here. Understanding dawned on her face. She wanted you away from Mr. Anderson, didn't she? Emma nodded, lowering her voice. Mom, I'm worried. I think Mrs. Anderson is putting something in Mr. Anderson's honey. Something that's making him sick. Martha's hands stilled on the folded towels. Emma, that's a serious accusation. What exactly did you see? Emma described the scene she'd witnessed in the kitchen, the small bottle with the dropper, and the furtive way Sophia had added the substance to the honey. And Mr. Anderson has been having symptoms, headaches, tremors? Yes, and fatigue. And he sometimes loses his train of thought mid-sentence. Martha closed the closet door and pulled her daughter into an empty guest bedroom. Emma, if what you're saying is true, this is dangerous territory. Mrs. Anderson comes from a powerful family, despite their financial troubles. Her father still has connections in this town. But we can't just do nothing, Emma protested. Mr. Anderson has always been kind to us. He pays you fairly, he respects your work. How many of your friends can say that about their employers? Martha sighed, the weight of their precarious position evident in the slump of her shoulders. Let me think about this. In the meantime, be careful. Don't let Mrs. Anderson know you suspect anything. The next morning, Emma arrived at the penthouse earlier than usual. Her mother had a doctor's appointment, so Emma had come alone to study before school. The penthouse was quiet, with only the housekeeper's gentle movements in the kitchen disturbing the silence. Emma settled at the kitchen island with her textbooks, positioning herself to have a clear view of the cabinet, where Sophia kept the mysterious bottle. She waited, pretending to study while keeping an eye on the kitchen entrance. At precisely 7:15, Sophia entered, dressed in yoga pants and an expensive athletic top. She seemed startled to find Emma there. You're early today, she remarked, her tone carefully modulated. Mom had an appointment, Emma explained, not looking up from her textbook. I hope it's okay that I let myself in with her key. Of course, Sophia replied, moving to the refrigerator. You're practically part of the furniture around here. The casual dismissiveness in her tone made Emma's cheeks burn, but she kept her expression neutral. From the corner of her eye, she watched as Sophia prepared a green smoothie, her movements graceful and practiced. When Sophia left for her morning Pilates class, Emma waited 5 minutes before approaching the forbidden cabinet. Her heart pounded as she carefully opened it, revealing a collection of prescription bottles and supplements. In the back, partially hidden behind vitamin containers, was the small bottle with the dropper that she'd seen Sophia use. Emma carefully removed it, examining the label. It wasn't in English or any language she recognized. The amber liquid inside looked innocuous enough, but Emma was certain this was what Sophia had been adding to Robert's honey. She pulled out her phone and took several photos of the bottle and its label, making sure to capture any text or markings that might help identify it. Then she carefully returned it to its exact position and closed the cabinet. Later that day, during her lunch break at school, Emma showed the photos to her best friend, Tyler Harrison. Tyler's mother was a pharmacist, and he had inherited her interest in medicine and chemistry. "I can't be sure without testing it," Tyler said, zooming in on the label. "But this looks like it could be some kind of herbal tincture. See these symbols? They're similar to what you'd find on traditional Eastern medicine packaging. Could it make someone sick? Cause headaches, tremors, confusion?" Tyler looked up sharply. "Why are you asking? Emma, is someone using this on a person?" Emma hesitated, then decided a partial truth was necessary. "I found it in my mom's employer's house. He's been having symptoms and I saw his wife adding this to his food." "That's messed up," Tyler said, his expression serious. "Some of these herbal compounds can be really potent, especially in concentrated form. They could definitely cause the symptoms you described, particularly if given regularly. See, it might not show up on standard tox screens either. What should I do?" "Tell the guy, obviously," Tyler said, as if it were the simplest solution in the world. But Emma knew it wasn't that simple. Without proof beyond her word against Sophia's, she risked not only her mother's job, but potentially their reputation and safety if she was wrong. That evening, Emma sat at their small kitchen table in the modest two-bedroom apartment they rented on the unfashionable side of Newport Beach. Through the thin walls, she could hear their neighbor's television blaring a game show. "Mom, I found the bottle," Emma said, showing Martha the photos on her phone. "Tyler thinks it's some kind of herbal tincture that could be causing Mr. Anderson's symptoms." Martha studied the images, her brow furrowed with concern. "Even if you're right, what can we do? It's our word against hers, and she's rich, connected. That doesn't make what she's doing right," Emma insisted. "No, but it makes her dangerous," Martha countered. "We need to be smart about this, Emma. We need a plan." As they discussed their options late into the night, neither noticed the text message that flashed on Martha's phone from an unknown number. "The Andersons are hiring a new housekeeper. References required. Interested?" The message, innocent on its surface, would later prove to be the first move in a dangerous game that was just beginning to unfold. The next morning, Martha stared at the text message on her phone, her coffee growing cold beside her at the kitchen table. "Emma," she called, her voice tight with concern. "Did you see this?" Emma read the message over her mother's shoulder, her pulse quickening. "They're replacing you. But Mr. Anderson has never complained about your work." "It's not from the Andersons directly," Martha pointed out, "and I haven't heard anything from Mr. Anderson or Mrs. Anderson about this." Emma frowned. "It feels like a trap. Don't respond to it." "I won't," Martha agreed, setting her phone aside. "But this makes me even more concerned about what you've been telling me. If someone knows we're suspicious..." They arrived at the penthouse together that morning, both tense and hyper-aware of every interaction. Robert was already in his home office on a conference call when they arrived, and Sophia was nowhere to be seen, presumably at her morning Pilates class. Martha went about her cleaning duties with practiced efficiency, while Emma set up her study materials in the kitchen. Their routine seemed normal, but an undercurrent of anxiety electrified the air around them. At 9:30, Robert emerged from his office looking more haggard than usual. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and the tremor in his right hand had become pronounced enough that he kept it tucked into his pocket. "Good morning, Martha, Emma," he greeted them, his voice weaker than its usual authoritative tone. "Is there any coffee?" "Right away, Mr. Anderson," Martha replied, moving to the expensive Italian espresso machine. Emma watched as Robert lowered himself onto a bar stool at the kitchen island, wincing slightly, as if the movement caused him pain. She made a decision in that moment, one that might cost her mother's job, but could save a man's life. "Mr. Anderson," she began hesitantly, "I was wondering if we could have our French lesson a little earlier today. I have a situation I could use your advice on." Robert looked surprised but nodded. "Of course. Shall we go to the office now?" Martha shot her daughter a warning glance, which Emma pretended not to see, as she gathered her books and followed Robert. In the privacy of his office, with the door closed behind them, Emma took a deep breath. "Mr. Anderson, what I'm about to tell you might sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out." She placed her textbooks on his desk and met his gaze directly. I believe someone is putting something in your honey, something that's making you sick. Robert's expression remained impassive, but Emma noticed his posture stiffen. That's a serious accusation, Emma. Do you have any evidence? Emma pulled out her phone and showed him the photos she'd taken of the mysterious bottle. I saw Mrs. Anderson adding drops from this into your honey jar 3 days ago, and it wasn't the first time. Robert examined the photos carefully, his businessman's poker face giving nothing away. And you believe this is causing my health issues? I showed these to my friend whose mother is a pharmacist. He thinks it's some kind of concentrated herbal tincture. The symptoms you've been experiencing, headaches, tremors, fatigue, confusion, they could all be caused by something like this. For a long moment, Robert said nothing. He turned to look out the window at the ocean vista, his profile etched against the brilliant blue of the sky. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I've suspected something wasn't right for weeks now. I even switched doctors when the first one couldn't find anything wrong with me. He turned back to Emma. But why would you risk telling me this? You must know what's at stake for you and your mother. Emma swallowed hard. Because it's the right thing to do, and because you've always treated us with respect. Not everyone in your position does that. Robert nodded slowly. Thank you, Emma. I need to think about this. He paused, then added, Don't mention this conversation to anyone, not even your mother. For now, we should continue as if nothing has changed. There's something else, Emma said, showing him the text message her mother had received. Someone sent this to my mom last night. Robert's eyes narrowed as he read the message. I haven't authorized any new hires. This is concerning. The rest of the day passed in a fog of tension. Emma tried to focus on her studies, but her mind kept returning to her conversation with Robert and what might happen next. Would he confront Sophia? Would he fire her and her mother for interfering? Or worse, would he not believe her at all? At lunch, Sophia made a rare appearance in the kitchen while Emma was there alone. The former model moved with feline grace as she prepared a salad, her diamond bracelet catching the light with each precise movement of her knife. How are the French lessons going? Sophia inquired, her voice pleasant but her eyes calculating. Very well, Emma replied, keeping her tone neutral. Mr. Anderson is a quick learner. He's always been good at acquiring new information, Sophia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's one of his most valuable skills in business. He can spot a lie or a deception from miles away. The comment hung in the air like a veiled threat. Emma felt a chill run down her spine but maintained her composure. That's a useful skill to have, she replied evenly. Sophia's smile tightened. Indeed. It's kept him alive in the cutthroat world of real estate development. She took a deliberate bite of her salad, chewing thoughtfully before adding, Not everyone has been so fortunate. His former business partner, for instance, had a complete nervous breakdown after a failed venture. Couldn't handle the pressure. Emma sensed there was more to this story than Sophia was telling, but before she could respond, Martha entered the kitchen with cleaning supplies. Oh, Mrs. Anderson, Martha said, momentarily startled. I'm sorry to interrupt your lunch. I can come back. No need, Martha. No. I was just having a fascinating chat with your brilliant daughter. Sophia gathered her plate and stood. You must be very proud of her. I am, Martha said cautiously. Every day. After Sophia left, Martha turned to Emma with a questioning look. Emma shook her head slightly. Not here, not now. That evening, as they were preparing to leave, Robert called Emma into his office again. Martha was finishing up in the master bedroom, and Sophia was out at a charity event. I've been thinking about what you told me, Robert said without preamble. I need more evidence before I can act. What kind of evidence? Emma asked. I want to catch her in the act. Robert opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small device. This is a mini camera. It's activated by movement and records to this secure cloud server. He showed her a smartphone app. I want to place it where it can monitor that cabinet and the honey jar. Emma hesitated. That would be invading her privacy. In my own home, when I suspect someone is poisoning me, Robert countered, a hard edge entering his voice. I think that concern is secondary right now. Reluctantly, Emma agreed to help. Together, they identified the optimal placement for the tiny camera, disguised as a part of the decorative molding above the cabinet in question. What will you do if you catch her? Emma asked as Robert carefully positioned the device. I don't know yet, he admitted, his face grim. But I need to understand why. We've been married for 15 years. What would drive her to this? Before Emma could respond, they heard the distant sound of the penthouse door opening, Sophia returning earlier than expected. They quickly finished installing the camera, and Robert ushered Emma out of the kitchen through the service entrance, just as Sophia's heels clicked on the marble floor of the foyer. The next morning, Emma arrived with her mother as usual, her nerves on edge. Robert was already in the kitchen, preparing his own coffee, something Emma had never seen him do before. "Good morning," he greeted them, his expression revealing nothing. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson," Martha replied. "Would you like me to take over with the coffee?" "No need, Martha. I'm enjoying the process." He smiled, but Emma could see the strain behind it. "Emma, perhaps we could have our French lesson a bit earlier today, say in 30 minutes? "Of course," Emma agreed, understanding the subtext. He had something to show her. Half an hour later, in the privacy of his office, Robert connected his tablet to the large wall-mounted screen and pulled up the footage from the hidden camera. Emma watched in stunned silence as the video showed Sophia entering the kitchen at 5:30 a.m., retrieving the mysterious bottle from the cabinet and carefully adding several drops to Robert's honey jar before thoroughly mixing it in. "I've been using a different honey jar for the past 2 days, one I keep hidden in my office," Robert explained, his voice clinically detached despite the betrayal they were witnessing. "But this confirms what you told me." "What will you do now?" Emma asked. Robert turned off the screen and sat heavily in his chair. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked his age, the weight of decades of stress and ambition etched into the lines of his face. "I need to understand why," he said quietly, "and I need to know if she's working alone." "What do you mean?" Robert hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Sophia has been spending a lot of time with an architect, Ethan Collins. He designed our beach house in Malibu last year. I initially thought nothing of it, but now I wonder if there's more to their relationship." Emma recalled the text message her mother had received. "Do you think he might be involved in this too?" "I don't know," Robert admitted, "but I intend to find out." He fixed Emma with an intense gaze. "This stays between us for now. Your mother knows nothing. Only my suspicions about the substance in your honey, not about the camera or the footage." Robert nodded. "Good. The fewer people who know, the safer everyone will be." As Emma left his office, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had stepped into something far more complicated and dangerous than she had initially realized. The cold calculations she'd glimpsed in Sophia's eyes now seemed to hint at deeper, darker motivations than Emma could fathom. And somewhere across town, in a sleek architectural office overlooking the harbor, Ethan Collins was reviewing the plans for his next project, a comprehensive renovation of a certain penthouse in Newport Beach, scheduled to begin after its current owner was no longer in residence. The following week brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere of the penthouse. Robert began declining his morning coffee and honey altogether, citing stomach issues. He appeared at breakfast with a protein shake he prepared himself in his private gym. Sophia noticed the change but said nothing, though Emma caught the flash of concern in her eyes. Meanwhile, Robert had begun gathering more evidence. With Emma's reluctant assistance, he installed additional cameras throughout the penthouse, focusing on areas Sophia frequented when she thought no one was watching. The footage revealed disturbing patterns, Sophia checking Robert's personal calendar, photographing financial documents in his office, and making hushed phone calls from secluded corners of the balcony. "I've scheduled a full medical exam for tomorrow," Robert told Emma during their French lesson, which had become their cover for strategic conversations. "I've specifically requested toxicology screening for unusual compounds." "Do you think they'll find anything?" Emma asked, her voice low despite the privacy of his office. "I don't know. Whatever she's using seems designed to mimic natural illness, but I need medical documentation if I'm going to take action." Emma hesitated before asking her next question. "What kind of action are you considering?" Robert's expression hardened. "That depends on what else I discover. For now, I'm exploring all my options." He pulled out his phone and showed Emma a series of text messages between Sophia and someone identified only as E in her contacts. The exchanges were coded but suggestive, with references to plans moving forward and the future we've been waiting for. "How did you get these?" Emma asked, uncomfortable with the depth of surveillance Robert had undertaken. "I have resources," he replied vaguely. "The question is, what are they planning?" That afternoon, while Martha was cleaning the guest rooms and Robert was at a business meeting downtown, Emma found herself alone in the kitchen with Sophia. The former model was arranging flowers in an expensive crystal vase, her movements precise and deliberate. "Emma," Sophia said suddenly, not looking up from her task, "do you believe people deserve second chances?" The question caught Emma off guard. "I suppose it depends on what they've done," she answered carefully. Sophia snipped a stem with more force than necessary. "And who decides that? Who has the right to judge another person's choices without understanding their circumstances?" "I don't know," Emma admitted, unsettled by the conversation's direction. "Of course you don't," Sophia said, her tone softening. "You're young. Everything seems black and white at your age." She arranged the last flower and turned to face Emma fully. "But life is far more complicated than that. Sometimes what looks like betrayal from the outside is actually self-preservation." Emma felt as if she were balancing on a knife's edge. "Mrs. Anderson, is everything okay?" Sophia's perfectly composed face cracked just slightly, revealing a glimpse of something raw beneath the surface. "No, Emma. Nothing has been okay for a very long time." She seemed about to say more when her phone chimed with a message. Glancing at it, her expression closed off again. "Excuse me, I need to take this." As Sophia left the kitchen, Emma released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The conversation had left her deeply unsettled, complicating the black and white narrative she'd constructed in her mind. That evening, after returning to their small apartment, Emma found her mother sitting at the kitchen table with an unfamiliar man in a crisp suit. "Emma, this is Mr. Davidson," Martha said, her expression tight with worry. "He's an attorney." "An attorney," Emma repeated, setting down her backpack. "Mum, what's going on?" Mr. Davidson stood and extended his hand. "Ms. Johnson, I represent Mrs. Sophia Anderson. She's concerned about some interference in her household affairs." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "I don't understand. My client believes you've been manipulating her husband, potentially with the aim of financial gain. She's prepared to file a restraining order against both you and your mother unless certain conditions are met." Martha reached for Emma's hand, squeezing it tightly. "He wants us to sign a non-disclosure agreement and terminate our employment with the Andersons immediately." "This is ridiculous," Emma protested. "We haven't done anything wrong." "Mrs. Anderson feels differently," Mr. Davidson replied coolly. "She has evidence of you accessing private areas of the penthouse, photographing personal items, and engaging in inappropriate private conversations with her husband." Emma's mind raced. The camera footage, the photos of the bottle, her conversations with Robert in his office. It all looked damning when framed as Mrs. Davidson had described it. "What happens if we refuse to sign?" Martha asked, her voice steady despite her evident fear. "Then Mrs. Anderson will pursue legal action. Given Mr. Anderson's resources and connections, I imagine that would be quite challenging for you both." He placed a thick document on the table. "However, if you sign this agreement and leave the Andersons' employment quietly, Mrs. Anderson is prepared to offer a generous severance package, 6 months' salary for you, Mrs. Johnson, and a college scholarship fund for Emma." The offer hung in the air between them, tempting and toxic all at once. Emma and Martha exchanged a look of silent communication, born from years of relying only on each other. "We need time to consider this," Martha finally said. "You have until tomorrow at noon," Mr. Davidson replied, gathering his briefcase. "I'll see myself out." After he left, Martha collapsed into a chair. "Emma, what have you done?" Emma told her mother everything: the cameras, the footage, the text messages, and Robert's suspicions about Sophia and the architect. Martha listened in horrified silence. "This is far worse than I imagined," she said when Emma finished. "We're caught in the middle of something dangerous, Emma. These are powerful people with resources we can't begin to match." "But we can't just abandon Mr. Anderson," Emma argued. "He needs our help. He's a billionaire with an army of lawyers and security personnel. We're a housekeeper and a high school student living paycheck to paycheck. Who do you think needs whose help?" Emma had no answer for that, but she knew she couldn't simply walk away. Not now. Not after what she'd seen. The next morning, Emma arrived at the penthouse alone. She had convinced her mother to let her speak to Robert one last time before they made their decision about the NDA. She found him in his office, looking worse than ever. His complexion was ashen, and the tremor in his hand had progressed to the point where he struggled to hold his pen. "Emma," he greeted her, his voice raspy. "I wasn't expecting you today." She closed the door behind her and told him about Mr. Davidson's visit and the NDA. Robert listened intently, his expression darkening with each detail. "So that's her play," he muttered when Emma finished. "Isolate me completely." "Mr. Anderson, Robert, my mother wants us to sign the agreement. She's scared, and honestly, so am I." Robert nodded slowly. "I understand. You should do what's best for your family, Emma. But what about you? You're getting sicker every day." "I had my medical tests yesterday," he revealed. "The results should come back today. If they find traces of whatever she's been giving me, I'll have concrete evidence to act." Emma hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling her since her conversation with Sophia. "What if there's more to this story than we understand? What if she has reasons?" "For poisoning me," Robert interrupted, his voice sharp. "There's no justification for that, Emma. None. I know, but yesterday she said something about self-preservation, about how what looks like betrayal might be something else." Robert's expression softened slightly. "Sophia has always been skilled at presenting herself as the victim, even when she's the one causing harm." He sighed heavily. "Our marriage hasn't been perfect, Emma. I've made mistakes, I've been absent, focused on building my empire, but nothing justifies what she's doing." Before Emma could respond, Robert's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, then thanked the caller and hung up. His face was grim. "That was my doctor," he said. "They found elevated levels of aconitine in my bloodstream. It's a toxin derived from a plant called monkshood or wolfsbane. In small doses over time, it causes exactly the symptoms I've been experiencing. In larger doses..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Emma felt a chill run through her. "What will you do now?" "Now I have proof. I've already contacted my attorney. He's preparing divorce papers and gathering evidence for potential criminal charges." "Criminal charges?" Emma repeated, alarmed. "You're going to have Sophia arrested? She's been systematically poisoning me, Emma. What would you have me do?" Emma had no answer. The situation had escalated beyond anything she could have imagined when she first noticed Sophia's suspicious behavior. "You and your mother should sign the NDA," Robert said, surprising her. "Take the money and the scholarship. Get as far away from this situation as possible. But if we sign, we can't help you. We can't testify about what we've seen. I have the medical tests and the video footage. That's enough." He reached out and squeezed her hand. "You've already done more than I had any right to expect, Emma. Now let me protect you both." As Emma left Robert's office, she nearly collided with Sophia in the hallway. The former model looked perfectly composed as always, but there was a new intensity in her gaze as she studied Emma's face. "Everything okay, Emma?" she asked, her voice honeyed with false concern. "Yes, Mrs. Anderson. Just finishing up a French lesson." Sophia smiled, a cold, calculating expression that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm glad you're continuing with your lessons, despite everything. Education is so important, don't you think? It opens doors to worlds you never knew existed." The comment felt loaded with double meaning. Emma managed a neutral smile in response before hurrying past. As she waited for the elevator, Emma heard the ping of an incoming text on her phone. It was from an unknown number. "Meet me at Harborview Park at 4 p.m. Come alone. I have information you need about the Andersons. Ethan Collins." Emma stared at the message, her heart racing. The architect, the man Sophia had been secretly meeting. Why would he contact her? Was it a trap? Or was there truly more to this story than she understood? As the elevator doors closed, Emma made her decision. She would meet Ethan Collins and hear what he had to say. But first, she needed to convince her mother not to sign the NDA, at least not yet. Whatever game was being played in the rarefied air of the penthouse, Emma was now an unwilling player, and she needed to understand all the rules before making her next move. Harborview Park stretched along the Newport Beach coastline, a carefully manicured slice of paradise where the wealthy came to jog with their pedigree dogs or enjoy the sunset from benches that cost more than some cars. Emma arrived 15 minutes early, her nerves strung tight as piano wire. She'd spent the afternoon convincing her mother to delay signing the NDA. Martha had reluctantly agreed to give Emma 24 hours, but her patience was wearing thin. "This isn't our fight," she'd said before Emma left for the park. "Remember that, Emma. No matter how righteous it feels, this isn't our battle to win. Now, as Emma scanned the park for any sign of Ethan Collins, she wondered if her mother was right. The stakes seemed to rise with each passing day, the situation growing more complex and dangerous than she could have anticipated when she first noticed Sophia's suspicious behavior. At exactly 4 o'clock, a man approached her bench. In his mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and the confident posture of someone accustomed to commanding attention, Ethan Collins looked exactly like the successful architect he was. "Emma Johnson?" he asked, his voice carrying the polished cadence of expensive education. Emma nodded, studying him carefully. "Mr. Collins." He sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Thank you for coming. I realize this must seem unorthodox." "That's one word for it," Emma replied, keeping her tone neutral. "Your message said you have information about the Andersons." Ethan gazed out at the ocean for a long moment before responding. "What I'm about to tell you will sound incredible, possibly even delusional. But I need you to hear me out completely before you make any judgments." Emma said nothing, waiting. "I've known Sophia for about a year now," Ethan began. "I designed the Andersons' beach house in Malibu. During that project, I noticed concerning patterns in Robert's behavior toward her. Controlling behaviors, isolation tactics, subtle psychological manipulation." Emma frowned. "Mr. Anderson has always seemed kind and respectful to me." "Of course he has," Ethan replied without hesitation. "Men like Robert are masters of compartmentalization. They show different faces to different people. And you're telling me this because I believe Sophia is in danger." Ethan turned to face Emma directly. "And because I know you've been helping Robert gather evidence against her." Emma felt her pulse quicken. "How would you know that?" "Sophia has noticed the cameras. She found one in the kitchen last week." He held up a hand as Emma began to protest. "She didn't remove it. She wanted to understand what was happening first." "What exactly are you suggesting, Mr. Collins?" "I'm suggesting that Robert Anderson is not the victim in this scenario. I'm suggesting that he has a history of eliminating obstacles, including people, who stand in his way." Ethan pulled out his phone and opened a photo gallery. "This is Michael Pearson. He was Robert's business partner 15 years ago." The photo showed a vibrant man in his 30s, standing proudly in front of a construction site. "And this," Ethan continued, swiping to the next image, "is Michael 2 years later, after their partnership dissolved." Emma couldn't suppress a gasp. The same man appeared gaunt and haunted, aged well beyond the 2 years that had passed. His eyes held a vacant, fearful expression that sent a chill down Emma's spine. What happened to him? Officially, a nervous breakdown caused by financial stress. Unofficially, Robert systematically destroyed him, psychologically, financially, socially. Michael tried to expose some of Robert's more questionable business practices, and Robert retaliated with a precision that was terrifying. Ethan put his phone away. Michael never recovered. He lives in assisted housing now, afraid to leave his room most days. Emma shook her head, struggling to reconcile this information with the Robert Anderson she knew. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because history is repeating itself." Ethan's expression grew grave. "Sophia discovered evidence of serious financial improprieties in Robert's business dealings, offshore accounts, money laundering, tax evasion on a massive scale. When she confronted him, he began a campaign to discredit her. He's been gaslighting her for months, making her think she's imagining things, that she's becoming mentally unstable." "And the substance she's been putting in his honey," Emma challenged. "That's been medically confirmed as a conitine, a poison." Ethan's expression registered genuine shock. "What? No, that's impossible." He ran a hand through his hair, visibly disturbed. "She told me she was giving him a herbal supplement recommended by her naturopath for his stress and high blood pressure. It's a traditional Chinese medicine, completely legal." Now it was Emma's turn to be confused. "But Mr. Anderson's medical tests confirmed a conitine poisoning. Tests that Robert arranged himself, with doctors on his payroll," Ethan countered. "Emma, think about it. Who has more resources here? Who has more to lose? Robert's empire is built on a foundation of financial deception. If that comes to light, he loses everything." Emma's mind raced, trying to process this new perspective. Could she have misread the entire situation so drastically? "Robert has been setting Sophia up," Ethan continued. creating a narrative where she's the unstable, gold-digging wife trying to poison him for his money. It's the perfect cover story to discredit anything she might reveal about his business dealings. And you know all this because I've been helping Sophia gather evidence of his financial crimes, Ethan admitted. We weren't having an affair, as I'm sure Robert has suggested. We've been building a case to take to the authorities. Emma studied his face, looking for signs of deception. Why should I believe you? Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a USB drive. This contains financial records from Robert's offshore accounts, documentation of shell companies, and evidence of systematic tax fraud. It's all here, Emma. The truth about the man you've been helping. Emma made no move to take the drive. What do you want from me, Mr. Collins? Your testimony could be valuable, he said. Your observations of Robert's behavior, the way he's manipulated you and your mother. But more importantly, I want you to be careful. If Robert suspects you're wavering in your support, you could become a target too. The warning sent a chill through Emma. She thought of the NDA waiting for her signature, the scholarship offer that had seemed so generous just hours ago. Had it all been part of Robert's strategy to silence potential witnesses? I need time to think, she finally said. This is a lot to process. Ethan nodded, placing the USB drive on the bench between them. Take this. Review it yourself. Make your own judgment. He stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Don't tell Robert about this meeting, for your own safety. As Ethan walked away, Emma remained on the bench, staring at the USB drive as if it might burst into flames. The certainty she'd felt about the situation had crumbled, leaving her adrift in a sea of contradicting narratives. That evening, in the privacy of her bedroom, Emma plugged the USB drive into her laptop. What she found was staggering. Hundreds of documents detailing complex financial transactions through a network of shell companies spanning from the Cayman Islands to Luxembourg. The technical details were beyond her understanding, but the pattern was clear enough. Money moving through a labyrinth designed to obscure its origins and destination. One folder contained personal notes, Sophia's journal entries documenting Robert's increasingly controlling behavior over the past year. Reading them felt invasive, but Emma couldn't stop herself. Robert suggested I increase my anxiety medication again today, one entry read. When I refused, saying I felt fine, he reminded me of my episode last month, an episode I still have no memory of. Am I losing my grip on reality, or is something else happening here? Another entry dated 3 months ago. Found evidence of the Singapore accounts today. When I mentioned them casually at dinner, Robert's expression changed for just a second, a flash of something cold and calculating that frightened me. Later, he told Dr. Mercer, I've been creating conspiracy theories again. They're adjusting my medication tomorrow. The journal entries painted a disturbing picture of psychological manipulation that made Emma's stomach churn. If these were true, the Robert Anderson she thought she knew was a carefully constructed facade. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her mother. Mr. Davidson called. We need to decide about the NDA by noon tomorrow. Emma stared at the message, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Who was telling the truth? Robert with his medical tests and video evidence, or Sophia and Ethan with their financial documents and journal entries? The next morning, Emma arrived at the penthouse with her mother, both women tense with unspoken anxiety. Robert met them in the foyer, looking surprisingly refreshed and energetic. Martha, Emma, he greeted them warmly. I'm glad you're here. I have wonderful news. My doctors have started me on a treatment for the aconitine poisoning. The results have been remarkable. I'm already feeling so much better. Emma studied him carefully. The tremor in his hand was indeed less pronounced, his complexion more vibrant than it had been in weeks. That's wonderful news, Mr. Anderson, Martha replied, genuine relief in her voice. I've been thinking about your situation, Robert continued. The NDA Sophia's attorney presented to you is unconscionable. I've had my legal team draw up an alternative arrangement. He handed Martha a folder. This guarantees your continued employment with a substantial raise, full health benefits, and a college fund for Emma that's twice what Sophia offered. All I ask is your discretion regarding the unfortunate situation with my marriage. Martha looked stunned. Mr. Anderson, this is incredibly generous. It's the least I can do after everything you've both done for me, Robert replied, his expression sincere. You're like family to me. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. Just 24 hours ago, she would have been overjoyed at this turn of events. Now doubt clouded her judgment. Was this genuine gratitude or another calculated move in a game she was only beginning to understand? "We'll need time to review this," Emma said before her mother could accept. Robert's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in his eyes, something that reminded Emma of Sophia's description in her journal. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He checked his watch. "I have a meeting downtown. Sophia is at her yoga class, so you'll have the place to yourselves this morning. We can talk more when I return this afternoon." After Robert left, Martha turned to Emma with bewilderment. "What's going on with you? This is an incredible opportunity. Why would you hesitate?" Emma couldn't bring herself to share everything she'd learned from Ethan and the USB drive. Not yet. Not until she was certain of the truth herself. "I just think we should have a lawyer look at it first, that's all." As they went about their morning tasks, Emma found herself studying the penthouse with new eyes, noticing details that seemed sinister in light of Ethan's revelations. The cameras Robert had installed weren't just in the kitchen, they were everywhere, recording every movement, every conversation. The penthouse suddenly felt less like a luxury residence and more like an elaborate cage. In the master bedroom, while helping her mother change the linens, Emma noticed a prescription bottle on Sophia's nightstand. Discreetly checking it, she saw it was a powerful anti-anxiety medication, the same one mentioned in Sophia's journal entries. As Emma straightened the pillows, she noticed a book on Sophia's side of the bed. Gaslighting. Recognize manipulative and emotionally abusive people and break free. A bookmark indicated Sophia was halfway through. The evidence continued to mount, pulling Emma deeper into a moral quagmire where nothing was as it seemed. By midday, her nerves were frayed to the breaking point. "Emma!" her mother called from the kitchen. "Could you come here for a moment?" Emma found Martha standing by the island, holding a small amber bottle, the same bottle Emma had photographed weeks ago. "I found this when I was organizing the supplements cabinet," Martha said. "There's a label in Chinese, but there's also this." She pointed to a small sticker on the bottom with English text. "Traditional Herbal Blend, Dr. Lin's Wellness Clinic." Emma took the bottle, examining it closely. "Mom, this is the bottle I saw Mrs. Anderson using, the one with the substance she was putting in Mr. Anderson's honey." Martha frowned. "It looks like a legitimate herbal supplement to me. Dr. Lin is a well-known naturopath in Newport Beach." Before Emma could respond, they heard the penthouse door open. But instead of Sophia returning from yoga, it was Robert, hours earlier than expected. And the expression on his face as he spotted the bottle in Emma's hand was not the concern or validation she would have expected from the man she thought she knew. Instead, it was something altogether more alarming: calculation, followed by a mask of concern sliding into place with practiced precision. "Emma, Martha," he said, his voice controlled but tight. "I think we need to have a conversation." Robert's unexpected return created an immediate tension in the kitchen. Emma carefully set the amber bottle on the counter, her mind racing to make sense of the conflicting narratives that had been presented to her. "I see you found Sophia's supplement," Robert said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge beneath its calm surface. He approached slowly, as a predator might stalk uncertain prey. "Interesting timing." "Mr. Anderson," Martha began, her protective instincts kicking in as she moved slightly in front of Emma. "I was simply organizing the cabinet when I found this. We meant no intrusion." Robert's gaze never left Emma's face. "And what do you make of it, Emma? This bottle that you were so concerned about a few weeks ago?" Emma struggled to maintain her composure. "I noticed it has a label from Dr. Lin's Wellness Clinic." "Yes, a convenient cover," Robert replied, picking up the bottle and examining it with exaggerated interest. "Did you know that many herbal supplements from unregulated sources contain unmarked ingredients? That's how Sophia has been able to administer aconitine without raising suspicion. It's quite clever, really." "The bottle says it's for stress and high blood pressure," Martha pointed out, her voice steady despite her evident discomfort. Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course it does. That's the perfect cover story." He set the bottle down and turned his full attention to Emma. "You seem troubled, Emma. Has something happened to change your perspective on the situation?" The directness of the question caught Emma off guard. She felt trapped between truths she couldn't reconcile, caught in a web of manipulation where every statement, every piece of evidence seemed to serve multiple possible narratives. "I'm just trying to understand everything clearly," she managed to say. "Understanding is important," Robert agreed, his tone softening. "Which is why I'd like to show you both something." He gestured toward his office. "Please, join me for a moment." Martha shot Emma a questioning glance, but they followed Robert into his office. The space felt different somehow. The large windows that usually offered a spectacular ocean view now made Emma feel exposed, as if they were on display in some strange aquarium. Robert closed the door behind them and moved to his computer. "I've been compiling evidence for the divorce proceedings," he explained as he typed. "Given what's at stake, I need to be thorough." He pulled up a video on his large monitor. The footage showed Sophia in their bedroom, on the phone, speaking in hushed but excited tones. "Yes, the treatments are working exactly as planned," Sophia's voice came through clearly. "He's showing all the symptoms. No, he doesn't suspect anything yet. Once it's done, we'll have everything we planned for." Robert paused the video. "This was recorded 2 weeks ago. She's speaking to Ethan Collins." He turned to Emma. "I believe you met with him yesterday." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "How did you—" "I have resources, Emma. I told you that." Robert's expression was a complex mixture of disappointment and concern. "What I don't understand is why you didn't tell me about the meeting. After everything we've shared, I thought I had earned your trust." Martha turned to her daughter in alarm. "Emma, what is he talking about?" Before Emma could respond, Robert continued. "Mr. Collins approached Emma at Harborview Park yesterday. I imagine he told you a compelling story about me being the villain in this scenario." His gaze fixed on Emma. "Did he give you something? Documents? A USB drive, perhaps?" The precision of his knowledge was chilling. Emma found herself unable to speak, trapped between lies and half-truths. "Robert," Martha intervened, her voice taking on the firm tone Emma recognized from her own childhood scoldings. "What exactly is going on here? First, Mrs. Anderson's lawyer threatens us, then you offer us an incredible deal, and now you're monitoring my daughter's movements." Robert had the grace to look slightly abashed. "I apologize for the surveillance, Martha, but you must understand what's at stake. Sophia and Ethan aren't just having an affair. They're conspiring to take everything I've built." He turned back to his computer and pulled up another file. "These are the results of my toxicology screening. The aconitine in my system is real." Emma found her voice at last. "But the herbal supplement is the delivery mechanism," Robert finished for her. "Dr. Lin is legitimate, but the particular mixture Sophia ordered is not on his regular menu, so to speak. It was custom-made to her specifications." He switched to another screen showing bank transfers. "Sophia has been moving money into offshore accounts for months now, accounts that only she and Ethan can access. Meanwhile, she's been gradually poisoning me, creating a condition that looks like natural illness. The plan, I believe, was for me to eventually collapse from apparent heart failure or stroke, leaving her with everything. The evidence was compelling, methodically presented with the precision of a prosecutor building a case. Yet Emma couldn't shake the memory of Sophia's journal entries, the fear and confusion documented there. "If all this is true," Emma said carefully, "why not go to the police?" Robert's expression darkened. "And have this splashed across every tabloid in the country? My company's stock would plummet. The projects we're developing would collapse. Thousands of jobs would be lost." He shook his head. "No, this needs to be handled privately." Martha placed a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. "This sounds extremely dangerous, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate your generosity, but I think it would be best if Emma and I removed ourselves from the situation entirely." "I understand your concern, Martha, but it may be too late for that." Robert's tone was gentle but firm. "Sophia knows that Emma has been helping me. If I move forward with the divorce and the evidence we've gathered, Sophia will do everything in her power to discredit all witnesses, including Emma." "Are you threatening us?" Martha asked, her voice sharp with maternal protectiveness. "Not at all. I'm explaining the reality of the situation." Robert leaned back in his chair. "The safest path forward for everyone is to follow the plan I've developed. I file for divorce, presenting the evidence of Sophia's infidelity but not the poisoning. She gets a generous settlement, enough to satisfy her and Ethan, and signs an ironclad NDA. Everyone walks away intact." "And our role in this plan?" Emma asked. "Discretion primarily, and your continued presence in the household to maintain normalcy until everything is finalized. Robert smiled reassuringly. The agreement I offered this morning ensures your financial security regardless of what happens. Consider it hazard pay, if you will. The office fell silent as Martha and Emma absorbed the implications of Robert's proposal. It was Martha who finally spoke. We need time to discuss this privately. Of course, Robert agreed. Take the rest of the day off, but I'll need your decision by tomorrow morning. Things are moving quickly now. As they gathered their belongings to leave, Robert called Emma back. One more thing. That USB drive Ethan gave you, I'd like to see it. Emma hesitated. I didn't bring it with me. Robert studied her face with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to detecting lies in high-stakes negotiations. I see. Well, I'd strongly advise you to be careful with it. The information it contains is likely fabricated, designed to sow exactly the kind of doubt you're feeling right now. His insight into her emotional state was unsettling. Emma managed a nod before following her mother to the service elevator. Outside in the bright California sunshine, the opulence of the beachfront property seemed suddenly obscene. Martha waited until they were in her aging Honda, safely away from the security cameras that undoubtedly monitored the building's entrance, before turning to her daughter. Emma Johnson, you have exactly 5 minutes to tell me everything you've been hiding from me, or so help me, I will ground you until college graduation. Emma told her everything. The meeting with Ethan, the USB drive, Sophia's journal entries, and the conflicting narratives that had left her questioning everything she thought she knew about the Andersons. Martha listened in silence, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. When Emma finished, she sat back with a heavy sigh. This is so far beyond anything we should be involved in, Emma. These people are playing games with resources and power we can't even comprehend. But who's telling the truth, Mom? Robert has medical tests proving he's being poisoned. Sophia has journal entries documenting psychological abuse. They can't both be victims. Or maybe they can, Martha replied thoughtfully. Maybe this is a marriage where both parties have done terrible things to each other for so long they've forgotten how to exist any other way. They drove in silence for several blocks before Martha spoke again. We need to talk to Sophia directly. No lawyers, no intermediaries, no hidden cameras. Just a straightforward conversation. How? Robert will be watching her closely now. Martha considered this. She goes to yoga every morning at that fancy studio on Ocean Avenue. We'll meet her there tomorrow before class. Emma nodded, relief washing over her at having shared the burden of her knowledge. What about Robert's offer? The agreement? We're not signing anything until we know exactly what we're getting into, Martha declared firmly. And Emma, no more secrets between us. Not in this situation. It's too dangerous. I promise, Emma agreed, the weight on her shoulders lightening just slightly. That evening, as they sat at their small kitchen table eating takeout Chinese food, Emma's phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. He knows about the USB drive. Be careful what you believe. Meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop across from Lotus Yoga at 8 a.m. S. Emma showed the message to her mother, her hand trembling slightly. She's reaching out, Martha mused. That's either very good or very bad. What do we do? Martha took a deep breath, her expression resolute. We meet her, we hear her side directly, and then we make our decision. Later that night, as Emma lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she replayed the events of the past weeks in her mind. The subtle shifts in the household dynamics, the calculated moves and countermoves, the evidence presented by both sides, each compelling in its own way. Who was the victim and who was the villain in this elaborate psychological chess match being played in the rarefied air of Newport Beach's elite? Or was it possible that in the corrupting presence of extreme wealth and power, everyone eventually became some version of both? Tomorrow's meeting with Sophia might provide answers, but Emma suspected it would only deepen the mystery. As she drifted toward uneasy sleep, one thought crystallized in her mind. Whatever the truth, she and her mother needed to extract themselves from the toxic web of the Andersons' marriage before they became casualties in a war they never signed up to fight. Across town in the penthouse with its perfect ocean view, Robert Anderson sat in his darkened office, reviewing security footage of Emma and Martha's departure. On another screen, a GPS tracker showed the location of Martha's Honda, now parked at their apartment complex. A third screen displayed Emma's text messages, including the one she had just received from Sophia. Robert reached for his phone and dialed a number from memory. "She's made contact," he said without preamble when the call connected. "Tomorrow morning at Lotus Yoga." He listened briefly to the response. "No, maintain surveillance only. I want to see how this plays out." Another pause. "Yes, the Johnson girl is still wavering. Her mother is the wild card now." He ended the call without saying goodbye. Outside the penthouse, palm trees swayed in the gentle night breeze, indifferent to the human drama unfolding behind the gleaming windows of wealth and privilege. The ocean continued its eternal rhythm against the shore, a reminder that some forces remained constant, while others, like truth, loyalty, and perception, were as changeable as the tides themselves. The morning air carried the distinctive salt tang of the Pacific as Emma and Martha arrived at the coffee shop across from Lotus Yoga. The beachfront establishment was already bustling with the pre-work crowd, fitness enthusiasts in designer athleisure wear, entrepreneurs tapping away on MacBooks, and the occasional tourist marveling at the picture-perfect California scene. Emma spotted Sophia immediately. Without her usual immaculate makeup and designer clothes, the former model looked different, younger, more vulnerable, dressed in simple yoga pants and a loose sweater with her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She sat at a corner table, nervously turning a coffee cup in her hands. "Remember," Martha whispered as they approached, "we're not taking sides. We're just gathering information." Sophia looked up as they approached, relief washing over her features. "You came. Thank you." She gestured to the empty chairs. "Please, sit." Martha took charge of the conversation, her natural directness cutting through the tension. "Mrs. Anderson, we're here because we want to understand what's really happening. Emma has been given two completely different versions of events, and frankly, we don't know who to believe." Sophia nodded, her expression serious. "I understand. And please, call me Sophia." She took a deep breath. "Before I explain my side, I need to know exactly what Robert has told you." Emma recounted Robert's allegations, the poisoning, the affair with Ethan, the conspiracy to inherit his fortune. Sophia listened without interrupting, her face growing paler with each detail. "The medical tests," Martha added when Emma finished. "He showed us results confirming aconitine poisoning. That's difficult to explain away." "I don't doubt the test results," Sophia replied quietly, "but I never administered aconitine to Robert. Never." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "The herbal supplement from Dr. Lin is exactly what the label claims. A traditional remedy for stress and high blood pressure. I've been taking it myself for months." "Then how do you explain the aconitine in his system?" Emma asked. "I can't, at least not with absolute certainty." Sophia's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. "But I have a theory. Robert has elaborate security systems throughout the penthouse, cameras, motion sensors, the works. But there's one room without surveillance. His private bathroom," Emma realized aloud. Sophia nodded. "He takes several supplements each morning. It would be simple for someone to add something to one of his pill bottles." "Someone like who?" Martha asked skeptically. "Robert himself." Sophia let the bombshell statement hang in the air before continuing. "It sounds incredible, I know, but Robert is a master strategist. He thinks 10 moves ahead in every situation." Emma frowned. "You're suggesting he's been poisoning himself? Why would anyone do that?" "To create a perfect narrative for the divorce," Sophia explained. "One where I'm the villain trying to take his fortune, rather than a wife who discovered his financial crimes." She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim laptop. "This contains the same information Ethan gave you, plus more I've gathered over the past year. Bank transfers to shell companies, tax evasion schemes, money laundering through real estate developments in Southeast Asia." She opened a folder of financial documents. "Robert's business empire isn't just built on aggressive negotiation tactics, it's built on systematic fraud." Martha studied the documents with a frown. "These look legitimate, but we're hardly financial experts. This could all be fabricated." "You're right to be skeptical," Sophia acknowledged, "but consider this. Why would I fabricate thousands of complex financial documents to frame my husband when I could simply divorce him and take half his legitimate assets under California law?" It was a compelling point that gave both Emma and Martha pause. "What about the video?" Emma asked. "Robert showed us footage of you on the phone, talking about treatments working and how he doesn't suspect anything yet." For the first time, Sophia smiled. a sad, tired expression that spoke of prolonged stress. I was talking to my therapist, Dr. Eleanor Jensen. The treatments were the cognitive behavioral therapy techniques she prescribed to help me cope with Robert's gaslighting. The full conversation would make that clear, but of course Robert only showed you the portion that supported his narrative. And Ethan Collins? Martha pressed. Robert claims you're having an affair. Ethan is my friend and ally in this nightmare, nothing more. Sophia's expression hardened. When I discovered the financial irregularities, I needed someone with resources and connections who wasn't under Robert's influence. Ethan designed our beach house last year. He saw how Robert treated me when he thought no one was watching. He believed me when I had no one else. Emma thought about the cameras in the penthouse, the constant surveillance, the way Robert always seemed to know things he shouldn't. He's been monitoring our conversations, hasn't he? Reading our texts. Sophia nodded grimly. Robert controls everything in his orbit. Information is power, and he never leaves anything to chance. If what you're saying is true, Martha said, then why reach out to us? Aren't you putting us in danger by involving us further? Because you're already involved, Sophia replied. Emma noticed the supplement and made assumptions. Robert manipulated those assumptions to make you both unwitting accomplices in his scheme. She reached across the table to touch Emma's hand. I'm sorry you were dragged into this, but now that you are, I wanted you to hear the truth directly from me. Emma's mind was spinning, recalibrating everything she thought she knew. The NDA that Mr. Davidson brought us was legitimate, Sophia confirmed. I did authorize that. I wanted you both safely out of the situation with enough financial security to start fresh somewhere else. I was trying to protect you. And Robert's counteroffer? Martha asked. Is a trap, Sophia said firmly. He wants you to stay because you're useful pieces in his game. Particularly Emma, with her observations of me poisoning his honey. Once he has what he needs, there's no guarantee he'll honor that agreement. The three women fell silent, the ambient chatter of the coffee shop continuing around them in stark contrast to the gravity of their conversation. What happens now? Emma finally asked. I've been building a case with my attorneys, Sophia explained. We're almost ready to move forward with both divorce proceedings and evidence of financial crimes for the authorities. Once that happens, things will get ugly very quickly. She looked at Martha and Emma with genuine concern. My advice remains the same. Take the settlement I offered through Davidson and get as far away from Newport Beach as possible. Martha shook her head. I'm not comfortable signing anything from either of you at this point. Then at least take this, Sophia said, reaching into her bag to retrieve an envelope. Cash, enough to tide you over for a few months while you figure out your next steps. No strings attached, no paper trail. Before Martha could respond, Emma noticed a familiar figure through the coffee shop window, Robert's driver, Michael, parking a black SUV across the street. We need to go, she said urgently. I think Robert knows we're here. Sophia tensed but didn't look toward the window. Use the back exit through the kitchen. The barista is a friend, just tell her Sophia sent you. Martha hesitated only briefly before taking the envelope. Thank you. Whatever the truth is in all this, I believe you're trying to help us. As Emma and Martha made their hasty exit through the kitchen, Emma glanced back to see Sophia calmly sipping her coffee, her posture transforming back into the poised socialite she presented to the world. It was an impressive performance, but then again, perhaps it had always been a performance one way or another. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of decisions and preparations. After careful consideration, Martha and Emma decided that extracting themselves completely from the Anderson drama was their only safe option. They would not sign any agreements, accept any formal payments, or provide testimony for either side. Martha called her sister in Oregon, arranging temporary accommodations while they figured out their next steps. Emma applied for a transfer to finish her senior year at a high school in Portland. They gave notice on their apartment and began packing their modest belongings. The cash from Sophia provided enough for the move and a few months' rent, while Martha found new employment. It wasn't ideal, but it was a clean break, or so they thought. On their final morning in Newport Beach, as they loaded the last boxes into Martha's Honda, a sleek black Tesla pulled up beside them. Ethan Collins stepped out, his expression grave. I'm glad I caught you, he said, approaching cautiously. Sophia told me you were leaving town. We're done with all of this, Martha replied firmly. Whatever's happening between the Andersons isn't our concern anymore. Ethan nodded. I understand and respect that decision, but there's something you should know before you go. He handed Emma a sealed envelope. This arrived at my office yesterday, addressed to you. Emma opened it cautiously. Inside was a handwritten note in elegant script. Emma, by the time you read this, events will have been set in motion that cannot be stopped. Whatever you've heard, whatever you believe, know this. Not everything is as it appears. The truth has many facets, and we see only those that reflect our own expectations. You showed kindness and integrity in a situation where many would have chosen self-interest. For that alone, you deserve better than being caught in the crossfire of a war you didn't start. The enclosed key opens a safety deposit box at Pacific Coastal Bank, box number 1742. Inside is something that may help you understand when you're ready. With respect and gratitude, R.A. Accompanying the note was a small brass key. What does it mean? Emma asked, showing the note to her mother and Ethan. Ethan studied it with a frown. I don't know. But Robert Anderson never does anything without multiple layers of purpose. We're not going to any bank, Martha declared, taking the note from Emma's hands. We're leaving town as planned, and we're putting this entire situation behind us. Ethan seemed about to argue, but instead nodded in resignation. That's probably wise. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. If you ever change your mind, or if you need anything at all, please call me. Directly on my cell, not through my office. As Ethan drove away, Emma stared at the key in her hand, curiosity battling with self-preservation. Mom, she began. No, Martha cut her off firmly. Whatever game they're playing, we're out. Both of them. Robert and Sophia are manipulating the truth to serve their own ends. The only way to win is not to play. Emma reluctantly pocketed the key as they finished loading the car. As they drove away from the apartment complex for the last time, neither of them noticed the discreet black sedan that pulled out several cars behind them, maintaining a careful distance as they headed north on the Pacific Coast Highway. 6 months later, Emma stood at the window of their modest Portland apartment, watching rain cascade down the glass in rivulets that distorted the world beyond. Oregon was a far cry from the perpetual sunshine of Newport Beach, but she had grown to appreciate its moody skies and lush greenery. Martha had found work as an office manager for a local construction company, less money than the Andersons had paid, but with regular hours and the dignity of being treated as a valued employee rather than an invisible presence. Emma had adjusted well to her new school and was preparing college applications, her sights set on a scholarship to study literature at Reed College. The Anderson saga had faded into something that felt like a distant dream, until that morning's news alert on Emma's phone. Tech billionaire Robert Anderson indicted on multiple counts of financial fraud. The accompanying article detailed the spectacular fall of the real estate mogul, following a federal investigation into his business practices. The case had apparently been built on evidence provided by his ex-wife, Sophia, who had finalized their divorce 3 months earlier. There was no mention of poisoning allegations, no scandalous affair with an architect, just the cold, hard facts of offshore accounts, tax evasion, and investor fraud on a massive scale. The article noted that Anderson had surrendered to authorities and was cooperating fully, his attorneys negotiating a plea deal that would likely involve substantial financial penalties but minimal jail time. A separate profile piece on Sophia painted her as a whistleblower who had discovered her husband's financial crimes and made the difficult decision to come forward. She was quoted as saying, "Sometimes doing the right thing means walking away from everything you thought was secure in your life and trusting that the truth will eventually surface." Emma showed the articles to her mother when she returned from work that evening. Martha read them in silence, her expression unreadable. "So it seems Sophia was telling the truth," Emma said when her mother finished reading. "About the financial crimes, yes," Martha agreed cautiously. "But that doesn't mean everything else she claimed was true. And it doesn't mean Robert was lying about the poisoning. In situations like this, there's rarely a single simple truth." Emma reached into her desk drawer and pulled out the brass key she had kept all these months. "I've been thinking about this a lot lately. What if there's something in that safety deposit box that could help us understand what really happened?" Martha sighed, the weariness of their Newport Beach ordeal momentarily visible in the slump of her shoulders. "Emma, we made a clean break. We're building a new life here. I know, Mom, but I can't help feeling like there's unfinished business. Like we left in the middle of a story without knowing the ending. After a long moment of consideration, Martha nodded. All right, spring break is coming up. We could drive down to Newport for a couple of days, check the safety deposit box, and drive back. But that's it, no contacting the Andersons, no getting involved again. Just closure. 2 weeks later, they stood in the hushed interior of Pacific Coastal Bank in Newport Beach. The manager led them to a private room where they could examine the contents of Box 1742 in privacy. The safety deposit box contained only 3 items: a USB drive, a large manila envelope, and a smaller white envelope with Emma's name handwritten on the front. Emma opened the white envelope first. Inside was another note in Robert's distinctive handwriting. Emma, if you're reading this, you've decided that the truth, however complicated, is worth pursuing. I've always admired that quality in you. The USB drive contains 2 sets of files. The first is evidence of financial irregularities in my business dealings. The same evidence Sophia has likely provided to authorities by now. It's authentic. The crimes are real. I've committed them over years of cutting corners and prioritizing profit over ethics. The second set of files contains medical records, not just the toxicology reports you've seen, but comprehensive testing from 3 independent facilities. The aconitine poisoning was also real. The how and why of it are addressed in the documents within the manila envelope. Whatever you decide to do with this information is entirely your choice. I've instructed my attorneys not to contact you or your mother regardless of your decision. You once helped me when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. This is my attempt to return that favor, with the one thing I've rarely offered anyone in my life, the unvarnished truth. Robert Anderson. With trembling hands, Emma opened the manila envelope. Inside was a thick document titled Full Disclosure and Final Testament of Robert Anderson. As she began to read, the true story of the Andersons finally emerged, more complex and morally ambiguous than either she or her mother could have imagined. Robert had indeed built his empire on financial fraud, beginning with his very first real estate development. Sophia had indeed discovered evidence of his crimes and had confronted him, but the reality of their subsequent psychological warfare was far more intricate than the binary victim-villain narrative either had presented. Sophia had begun adding the herbal supplement to Robert's honey as a genuine health measure initially. But as their marriage deteriorated and she gathered more evidence of his crimes, she had gradually increased the dosage to levels that caused mild symptoms, enough to keep him off balance and distracted while she built her case and secured her financial future. Robert, always several steps ahead, had discovered her plan and secretly replaced the supplement with pure aconitine in small doses, essentially poisoning himself with carefully controlled amounts to create medical evidence that would destroy Sophia's credibility if she ever went public with his financial crimes. It was a breathtaking act of mutual destruction, each spouse willing to go to extraordinary lengths to protect their interests and punish the other for perceived betrayals. Neither was innocent, neither was entirely guilty. They were 2 sophisticated strategists, locked in an escalating game of psychological chess, with Emma and Martha as unwitting pawns. The final pages of Robert's confession included a surprising revelation. He had provided copies of all his financial crimes to the authorities himself 3 days before Sophia filed her evidence. His plea deal had been negotiated in advance, with terms that allowed him to maintain control of portions of his business empire, while satisfying the government's need for a public conviction. In the end, he wrote in the conclusion, I chose to take control of my own downfall rather than let Sophia dictate the terms. Perhaps that's the final move in our long game, acknowledging defeat while still choosing the manner of surrender. Emma closed the document, her mind struggling to process the layers of deception and calculation that had defined the Andersons' marriage. It was simultaneously less sinister and more disturbing than she had imagined. Not evil intent, but the slow corruption of 2 people who had used their intelligence and resources to justify increasingly destructive behavior toward each other. Well, Martha asked, watching her daughter's expression closely. It's complicated, Emma replied, understating the case dramatically. Neither of them was telling us the whole truth, but neither was lying completely either. Martha nodded, unsurprised. People rarely fit into neat categories of heroes and villains, Emma, especially people with the kind of power and privilege the Andersons had. What do we do with all this? Emma gestured to the contents of the safety deposit box. Martha considered for a moment. Nothing. Their story has played out as it was always going to, with or without our involvement. Our chapter in it is finished. She gathered the items and returned them to the box. Let's go home, our real home now in Portland. As they drove north on the Pacific Coast Highway, retracing the journey they had made 6 months earlier, Emma found herself reflecting on the strange education she had received in the rarefied air of Newport Beach. Not the French lessons she had given Robert, but the more valuable lessons about truth, perception, and the corrosive power of wealth without moral compass. The California coastline stretched beside them, beautiful and indifferent to human drama. Emma rolled down her window, letting the salt air fill the car as they drove toward their simpler, more honest life in Oregon. The key to the safety deposit box lay heavy in her pocket, a reminder of a world she had glimpsed, but chosen not to inhabit. Some mysteries were better left partially unsolved, some stories better left without a definitive ending. In the complicated war between Robert and Sophia Anderson, the only true victory had been Emma and Martha's decision to walk away, to choose authenticity over advantage, simplicity over sophistication. As the sun began to set over the Pacific, Emma smiled at her mother. No words were needed between them, just the shared understanding that they had navigated a moral labyrinth and emerged intact, their relationship strengthened by the journey. In Newport Beach, the Andersons' penthouse stood empty, its perfect white surfaces reflecting the golden California light. Like the people who had once inhabited it, the space was beautiful, cold, and ultimately hollow, a monument to ambition without purpose, achievement without joy. Emma turned her gaze forward, toward the road ahead and the future they were building on their own terms. That, she realized, was the real treasure she had salvaged from the wreckage of the Andersons' war. Not wealth or influence, but the wisdom to recognize their true value. Fim da Historia. Dear listeners, we hope you've been captivated by Emma and Martha's journey through the dangerous waters of wealth and deception. Their story reminds us that sometimes walking away is the greatest victory of all. For more emotionally rich stories that explore the complexities of human relationships, we've prepared a special playlist you can find by clicking the link to your left. If you enjoyed this narrative, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Every day we bring unique stories that delve into life's intricate moments and moral dilemmas. Don't miss our upcoming content. The next story might be exactly what your heart needs to hear. We're looking forward to reading your thoughts in the comments section below.